David, can you hear us?
No. I don't think, oh, there we go.
I think you guys are still on mute.
I don't know how to unmute us if we are. Do what?
He is unmuted, he's talking.
We can hear David. He can't hear us. What's wrong? Is it on our end?
I don't think so, because otherwise, yeah, our red microphone is on. There we go.
Okay, now can you hear us, David?
Nope.
Nope. Still can't hear us, okay?
Might be the network.
We need this one. It's the same thing. Kelly's visiting from Austin. Dude, I'm thinking about moving here. Probably a year or so.
Should I just call him?
Just gonna
I
check.
guess I could too.
I can,
Want to put it on your phone?
yeah, I can call him like
Okay, let's see if this
regular.
works. He's gonna-
Okay.
Today's his birthday, too. Hmm? 65. He and I were roommates, which share an apartment, place I live on. That could have been my best.
What is Killiver's?
We've lost some connection completely.
Okay, I'll just call him.
That's all right.
It's gone.
I'll just call him.
All the rest of you guys' mics are on and off. And we're recording.
Okay, you're recording? Cool. Hey, he can't get the Zoom to connect, so I'm just gonna have you on the phone if that's okay.
Okay.
Alrighty, you're on speaker.
Sorry, David.
No worries.
All right. Maybe, hopefully, if you have, speak up if you have any questions or anything.
Will do.
Michael, you want to kind of go through what we've come up with Gary or with him?
First of all, what I wanted to show you was that we have we handed out you the budget. We made some alterations to it, not even the numbers. We just altered some of the things that the mayor had asked that we put the previous budget on there so we could kind of see how we're going from year to year. And we also went through and added some of the notes that we have. So there should be a lot of the notes in there that answer a lot of the questions or whatever. So we kind of added that in there too. What we're here to talk about today is mainly the police and the fire. And so the first thing that I guess we want to talk about, since we did the reviewing, is the capital expenditures on the police department.
Fire department.
I'm sorry, fire department. Oh, I was looking at looking at the police. And that's going to be on page 15 of 27. About halfway down, we have the Department 14, Fire and EMS. And the things that he has listed are 70,000 for the turnout gear, 23,000 for the AEDs in the city, 132 for the 2 ambulance cots and the mounting, and 14,000 to replace the gas-powered vents. So we went out and viewed the cots to see what they look like, what they got a demonstration from the cot salesman. And so do we have any questions about the cots?
The cot guy's here, so if we got any questions, maybe.
What's a gas-powered vent?
I'm
What's a
sorry?
gas-powered vent?
Okay, so the positive pressure ventilation fans, we use them in structure fires. It's meant to clear the houses once the fire is, well, even while the fire is still burning, we have to be very careful with air entrainment. But once the fire is out, as far as clearing those toxic gases out of a structure so that it's safer for the firefighters to work. Well, now what they found with the gas-powered powered fans is that all of that exhaust from the gas power is being sucked right into the structure and introducing a number of carcinogens right back into the atmosphere that it's supposed to be clearing out. So the industry standard has become battery power or electric fans, and it reduces a lot of the exhaust and fumes that are being introduced back into a structure. And
Is this just one vent?
that's for 2 of them. And the reason why I put in for 2 is to have one on 2 different engines, but we're one short right now. We have one truck that needs a fan put on it, and it kind of come to the point of, well, do we get another fan, or we just go ahead and go to the battery power? Because ultimately, that's in probably another 5 years or so, that's probably all you're going to be able to buy.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? It looks like, we've reduced the overall capital budget on the fire and EMS from 355 down to 239 for this year. So we're doing pretty good there.
And Gary just got back from picking up that ambulance, so the one that's the ambulance refurb, we got that completed.
Yes, it was picked up, and we got it back to the station about 4:30 yesterday evening. It turned out really nice.
So if any council members wants to go up and see what it looks like, it's up at
Yeah.
the main fire station. You're more than
Absolutely.
welcome to go by and look at it.
Monday, it has to go, I'm taking it down to Ozark and meeting the state health department. It has to be inspected by the state. But when it comes back from Ozark, it'll be put in service immediately. It'll be ready to go.
Great.
Okay, and Gary's here too to also go over anything in his individual budget that we want to talk about, and that would be on page 8.
As far as the specific line items, I don't think we really made any drastic changes to anything, except I will mention the equipment maintenance. I did increase that some over last year's budget, and the reason why I did that is because of the new radio systems that we've invested in. The county is putting in a new communication system, which required us to spend a good deal of money on new radio systems. And I definitely wanted to add a little bit of extra money into the budget for the maintenance of that system because these new radios, they get pretty pricey. If somebody drops one or one gets broken, instead of $800 a radio, now we're looking at about $3,000 for a radio.
Another thing to point out on Gary's, on his maintenance of building, which is 01-14-5511, we did drop that, but the reason why is because we had a one-time occurrence last year, or this year, where we had to replace a garage door that got backed into. So his normal expense, a normal maintenance building is more around $5,000 a year is what he normally spends, but we had to spend some extra on that garage door. So that's why that's going down.
How do you figure up overtime? How do you figure the budget? What do you budget for overtime?
Well, originally, I think last year was 120,000 budgeted, and we budgeted 100,000 for this year. I've worked extra. The fire marshal, who's also on salaries, worked extra. We've just tried to make it an effort to reduce that number down as much as we can. And I'd like to see that number keep going down. If I can keep people healthy, that number should go down significantly.
There's a lot of factors involved in that, isn't there? Like, if someone quits, you have a vacancy, then other people have to pick up the slack. And
We've not had any vacancies this year as far as full-time positions.
Okay.
But we did have, we had a gentleman that had a back injury, which required, covering them. And of course, whenever we cover somebody with a part-time person, they're no longer under the 53-hour rule of the fire department. Anything over 40 hours is considered overtime for that person. And of course, working 24-hour shifts, it doesn't take long before somebody gets into overtime.
Right.
It
No one's
just-
expected to retire this year? No retirements coming up?
Not that I'm aware of.
One of the main things that we did on that too was in 2022, overtime was outrageous. It was very high. So in 2023, we put in a time card system, a scheduling system to help them with getting people scheduled and trying to figure out how to not do so much overtime. So he has been reducing that quite drastically. So we've gone from about 120, 130,000 a year down to 100, down to, he's trying to keep it going down. So that is something that's a work in progress that we've started on, and we did put in that new system to help with that.
And it's not an overnight fix, but I do see it trending downward.
Great. How many staff do you have, Chief?
Right now, we have 14 full-time.
14?
Now, a kind of reminder of people, what we used to have, and it's always real hard for me to understand, because most of us are used to working 40 hours, and anything over 40 is overtime. They have a 96-hour, or used to be, is it 96?
106.
106.
53 hours a week.
Yeah. So their process is, overtime is automatically part of the budget because of how this worked. And what Michael's talking about, we tried to get this rearranged so we could get the scheduling back. And obviously it appears to be working pretty good. It took us about a year to get it down, but we've seen a big improvement on that. And I think the employees probably have helped too, because we've extended some of that in through there, so, yeah.
Public safety volunteers? Done in the second to last, 5593.
Okay, so one of the epidemics that we've had across the nation is just the lack of volunteerism. It's not just here, it's everywhere. And unfortunately, it's just kind of the product of the times. People aren't willing to give like they used to. People's mentality is, well, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be paid for it. And so we've seen volunteerism really fall off over the last 10, 15 years. We're very fortunate that we have the volunteers that we do, and we've done our best to try to retain those volunteers. We pay them now, any meeting hours that they come to, training, any calls that they come on, we try to reimburse them for that time, because that is time that they are taking away from their family or their other job that they work. And we're hoping that will help us keep our volunteers that we have.
How many volunteers do we have?
Right now, we have about 17 volunteers.
Yeah.
And I like to keep it, I would like to see it right around 20. So, yeah, we are a few short of what we would normally like to have, but we're at a good number, and the ones that I do have, most of them are very active and have done a wonderful job this year.
Are you just reimbursing for expenses, or are you like contract labor?
It's an hourly pay.
Okay.
If they work 10 hours, then they get whatever their hourly pay is. And I think it's the same for all of them, but I want to say it's $13 an hour, but, with gas the way it is, sometimes, and if they only get 1 hour for an incident that they came to, it almost works like a reimbursement, but for their time, or their expenses.
So they're considered contract labor, not part-time employees?
No, they're not considered part-time employees.
We were having a hard time getting the volunteers to sometimes even show up for training. And then, of course, your calls. The volunteers play such an important part of our fire department. And of course, our full-time fire are also EMS people. So, there's an overlap, and our EMS really helps pay for our fire department. But it's the volunteers that, and what can we do? And the biggest complaint that I've heard, because a lot of these volunteers I have got know a couple of people, they got a full-time job, they've got insurance, but if they take off and they go fight a fire, that insurance may not cover them, probably won't cover them, because it's a off-duty hazardous situation. And hopefully, they won't get hurt, but that's always a possibility. So we feel like whatever we can do on a minimum standard just to recognize their importance. And so this is something we tried to introduce, I wanted to get introduced this year, to be able to see if we can encourage it. And it seems like we're getting more people showing up for training and for the meetings even.
Absolutely, and I want to kind of emphasize what the mayor said there with the importance of the volunteers. There's a lot of times where the ambulance crews are out, and if a fire comes in, you are solely relying on those volunteers until we can free up from an ambulance call. So their job is very, very important, and we exist because of those volunteers.
Well, 20 volunteers for $30,000 is pretty good.
Yeah.
Could use some money.
agree.
How about the collections expense?
What that is we contract with a collection agency to collect our ambulance payments. We have a billing company that bills them, and then we have a collection company that collects them, and that's the fee that we pay to them for their collections.
Why did it jump so high from?
The reason why is because if you'll look at line 5572, we were running all those together under professional services other. It was $55,000 last year. We dropped it to $23,250 this year. The collection expense, we went from $3,500 to $32,000. We pulled that out of professional services and we're going to put it in collection expense because it's truly a collection expense. It was just previously being reported under professional services. So it's not gone up anything, it's just we're busting it
Change
out.
it, yeah.
We're busting out the line item, just so that, when you have things like professional service or miscellaneous, those are kind of like
Catch-alls.
group catch-alls, where you're putting a bunch of stuff in. So what we go back and try to determine is if we have one thing, there's a lot of it going into professional services or miscellaneous, then we bust it out and give it its line item. So we're bringing that out under collection expense.
You know, this is,
Michael, what page are you on?
8 of 27.
Okay, sorry I'm not there to keep up, I really apologize.
that's
No
okay.
problem.
You know, the nice thing about our accounting system that we've had, and we've been wanting to do this for a long time, and Michael's really jumped in, is we want to try to, anytime we have places that we think we can split out and make it more transparent, not only to the council but to the public, so we're able to add line items where in our previous accounting system, we couldn't do it. We were pretty much stuck with, 28 lines or something. And now, when something like this comes up, then we can add it and everybody can see and have a better feel. It's not only helps us as a council members, but it also helps the department heads because then they can really bear down and look. When I came in as mayor, the department heads didn't even have access to their budget on a monthly basis. And so they were always playing catch-up. They had no, it was like having a checkbook without knowing what their balance was. They were just writing checks. And so we had a lot of overdrafts, you might say, on there. So the budget, the department heads have done a good job of developing a budget and staying within them, I think. So,
So Michael, what does the $10,000 in IT services cover?
That covers all of their, do you use BSNA?
We use
They use a little bit of
a
BSNA.
little bit of it, but some of that is also the software that we use for our reporting to state and federal agencies is also done through a company called ESO. They charge us a yearly fee for different modules that we use. Currently, we have to have reports for patient reports, but then we also have to have fire reports that have to be reported as well. Along with that, we do have modules that for inspections, fire inspections, pre-planning, mapping of, and maintenance of hydrants, inventory for all of our medical supplies. Each one of those modules cost a little bit per year, some of them substantially per year to use those parts of that system. And that line item in particular is one that we pull from for those items.
Also paying for the employment scheduling.
That's
software.
another one.
That's another one too.
David, do you have anything else in there?
Not related to fire or EMS, no.
Okay. Steve, Melissa, y'all?
No, looks good.
All right, we'll go on and get over and jump over the police department. Gary, thank you very much. And
You bet.
thank you for coming and showing us the Cotton new ambulance deal.
All right, we'll go back to the police department. Let's go ahead and start with their capital budget, because we've got a couple things there we want to talk about.
What page?
It's going to be on page 15 of 27. Department 12 for Police Department, we have capital expenditures of 2 replacement vehicles for a total of $82,000. And then the other item that we want to discuss is the capital expenditures for the body cams. We had originally, the original bid was $77,000 to purchase the body cams. Billy has done a great job of going back and talking to them and negotiating that. So they were originally asking for 16 body cams. He's reduced that down to 10 body cams. And the total cost on that is going to be about $33,000 with an annual service of about $1,950. Since we were talking about a larger number to begin with, we did ask him to go back and find out about dash cams because we kind of felt like that was pretty important too. He can explain to you, the details on how everything works. But if we got the 10 body cams and 10 dash cams for our patrol cars, it takes it up to about $110,000. So on that line item, we're either looking at lowering it to $33,000 for just the body cams, or raising it to the probably $112,000 for body cams and dash cams. And Billy's here, so I'm going to let him talk to you about the difference between the two.
So it's basically raising it another $32,000.
Yes.
Actually, quite a bit.
Yeah.
With both, it would be about 60-something thousand
Yeah. Well,
Quick
from
math.
what we had originally asked for,
Yeah.
the 80.
And the
Yeah.
dash cams take a lot more memory because there are 3 cameras on each car. There's a focused view, a panoramic view out front, and then there's a back seat camera. And this bid, this guy that I was talking to up there, he's really easy to work with. This is customizable. If we wanted to,
Pull your microphone closer to
if we
you.
wanted to do partial dash cams this year, we could do more next year or throughout the year, but we can't lock in that price. This is also contingent, these prices are contingent on contract before the end of the year. We wouldn't have to pay for them until next year. We might not even have them to us before next year, but if we get this locked in, this is the overall price for 10 full cars outfitted with dash cams and 10 full body cams. Those body cams also come with an extra battery, or 6 extra batteries, download station, 1 remote download station, and several other really good things. The old system that we have, this company Motorola bought WatchGuard out. And if we get a contract with Motorola, they will let us keep the old system with no service fees. And we had talked about sharing body cams with the building inspectors and also having body cameras for our reserves when they come out. That's one way to do that. Now, that old system is at end of service. They won't be giving us any more cameras to replace the old ones. They don't service the old ones. We have 6 right now. When those are gone, they're gone. The system is ours. With the length of time that we had it in service, we've pretty much bought it ourselves, so they won't be charging us anything. They'll still service our memory. If there's anything that has anything to do with the downloading station, the old one, the on-premise record keeping, they'll still service that for us. We still have access to all that. Anything that isn't case sensitive that goes into the memory system disappears after a year. 365 days, it's gone unless we mark it or archive it. And so as time goes by, that system will pretty much be obsolete to us anyway. If the building inspector has anything he needs to put on there, we still have access to it, and he'll have access to it. back to what I was saying about the updated system. This Motorola is constantly upgrading things. Some of the things that we took out of the original bid were an upgrade at every 2 years. They were going to give us free upgrades every 2 years. That was a pretty expensive thing that we took out of the original bid. These still have 5-year warranties and a really good service plan with them. If we were to eventually go to Motorola radios, all of these systems would have a GPS tracker on them. The car cams, if I'm not mistaken, if we get a Wi-Fi system, which we already have in place with our new computer systems, where we have ACIC in every car and ticket writing abilities in every car, I believe that Wi-Fi can be integrated on these, where we can have GPS trackers on these body cam or on these dash cams, which kind of mitigates some concern that I've heard from council members. So all that being said, this system, highly recommended. I did look at other systems. They were all inclusive. They didn't really work together with our old systems. If you went with the other system, I don't want to say the name since we're not going with them, but they're quite a bit more expensive for the type of upgrades that we can get with this one. And like I said, completely customizable from top to bottom. If we want it now, if we want it later, we can add more, take away. And the overall service system, that was another big thing with the other system that I talked to. They were cloud only. We have on-premise record keeping with this one. The other one, the service system was way more because of that, because it cost a lot more for them to keep track of it in the cloud for us. The cloud is an option with this system. That would up the service system quite a bit. That's why the original bid had a much greater service system, because it had the cloud and the on-premise included in it. So kind of self-educated a lot on this over the past few days or past few weeks, but that's what I came up with. Are there any questions on any of that?
So is all this reflected in this here?
The total, where you see the $80,000 for the capital expenditure, the very first line of the police department, that's what we had originally put in the budget because we thought it was going to be 77. So the decision here will be whether we want both systems or we just want one system. If we want one system, then we're going to lower that 80,000 down to 33,000. If we want both systems, then it's going to raise that 80,000 up to about 112. So we'll just have to make an adjustment there to whichever one the council feels like. We have the money to spend. It's not going to affect our budget a whole lot. It's $30,000. So it's just something we wanted to bring to council to kind of get your opinion on what you feel like we should spend on it.
Chief, do you feel that these are important?
Oh, the body cams?
Well, the
prices?
body and the dash cans.
Well, the reason I would say the dash cams are important is because, just for example, I can think of a lot of examples, but just a few nights ago we had a shots fired call downtown, and the officers showed up very quickly. And since they don't wear outer carriers that the camera can mount to, they just had them mounted onto their shirts.
Right.
They had to throw their ballistic vests, their high rifle plates, ballistic vests over the top of the camera. And because there's no mounts, something to look into in the future. But so there, once the vest went on, all we had was audio. In a situation like the car cams, for one, it's going to show everything that officer said and did on the way to the call. Every incident where if there was an accident or anything on the way to the call, it will record every bit of it. It records the approach, and also, quite importantly, it records the inside of the car. And so once you have the suspect or potential suspect inside the car, it has a video audio recording of everything that goes in there. And so any of your police brutality accusations, all those types of things that people say, oh, he turned his body cam off and then beat my head against the back of the car, those types of things, everything inside the car is recorded. and also outside the car from basically the passengers, or from the front doors up. There was a panoramic view, a focused view, and then the back seat view. So liability-wise, yeah, and also officer safety-wise.
Okay,
And
There's
as a-
so many,
as a-
I think there's so many reasons that we need to support this.
yes.
Officer's liability, department's liability, the city's liability, and also, for accountability as well, for the
Accountability,
public,
yeah.
to see if
That's
this
what I
is
started to say
transparent.
as a patrol sergeant, the body cams were invaluable for being able to critique the guys, to be able to answer questions that they had, to be able to give them advice about things, and also, like you said, accountability. If I've got somebody that draws a complaint, it
Yeah.
takes me 5 minutes to go under and watch that video and see if he did what they accused him of. And,
So on
I've
procedure,
found many of those unfounded.
is the body cam and the dash cams turned on every call?
So on the dash cams, the way I understand it, yes, the dash cams, every time you turn your lights on, it will automatically start. The body cams that we have right now with the system, with the way that we have it right now, they have to be manually on. If we eventually went to Motorola radios, and I don't think we can for a while because I think we just spent a lot on Kenwoods, but if we went to Motorola radios, every time you keyed up your mic, it would, now on the body cams, let me reiterate, on the body cams, they are technically recording all the time. It will not download a file that you can label unless you turn it on. Something happens, the officer forgets to turn it on, or something happens he wasn't prepared for and he gets in a fight, I can go back, or admin can go back and see whatever that camera was doing at that time. In other words, if it's on, it's constantly technically recording, but it doesn't archive unless you push the button, the record button. So, if that answers your question.
But it's basically on in case,
Yeah, in case
because most of the
something
time,
happens
I
and
mean,
you
these
don't get to
things
turn it
happen
on,
automatically and the officer
we
doesn't
can
have
go
time to
back.
hit the body cam
we can
anyway.
go
so
back in and pull that.
It's recorded
Yeah.
as we go through there. Yeah.
Right.
I was watching a YouTube video and the officer put on a reflective vest, covered up his camera.
That's what happened the other night at that call downtown. They put on their protective vests over the top of it. I could hear everything.
This was a reflective vest, just because.
Oh, reflective
Yeah,
vest.
so
Right.
all you saw was
wintertime,
orange. you know?
wintertime does that to us too. Zip the
Yeah.
coat up and you're looking through this
Yeah.
little vision of a zipper, trying to.
Well, I
But I-
support that we
Me
have
too.
these cameras.
Me too. So go ahead and put it in the budget, Michael.
Yeah.
I would
David, do you have any
encourage it.
questions?
Yeah,
Yeah. David?
He's good right now.
Okay, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think as you said, Steve, I think this, it just adds, protects everybody involved.
Every-
Yeah.
I mean,
The
so,
public, officer, everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so now we're going to delve into the police department budget, overall budget. And that's going to be on page 6 of 27.
So how many staff do you have, chief? How many staff do you have?
We have
Officer?
14 as well.
Is that 14
There's
officers?
10 full-time officers, 3 detectives. One of my detectives is also my assistant chief, and then me.
4 dispatchers, 3 dispatchers?
Right now, we're shorthanded, so I think we're supposed to have 6 overall and 1 part-time. I'm not sure on that. But right now, we have 4, counting the dispatch supervisor. We have 2 applicants in. So
You have 2 what?
2 applicants we haven't interviewed yet. So I believe you might be right. Might be 4 full-time, 1 part-time.
And one of the things too on the staff, when you're talking about that, Steve, is I've encouraged Billy the chief, to look at getting us back a full-time person downtown the bicycle
Yeah.
person, you wouldn't say meter patrolman, although, and they don't have to be certified. Right now, the problem we have is they're a certified officer, they get called off in case of,
We used to have more than one, didn't
we used to have two, yeah.
And we need them, I mean, just,
Well, we'll still have two, but one would just be, of
and
course,
they-
what we had before was two,
Yeah.
not Manny and,
Larry,
they weren't, neither one were certified. I don't know why we had
we'll,
two, but
we'll try to distinguish them. They'll look like police officers, but they'll have something like traffic control officer or parking enforcement on their
Okay.
shirt, so that they're
Okay.
not mistaken for police, even though they'll dress and be professional.
all right.
I've thought about the liability of that quite a bit, of having someone that says police on their shirt, but can't do what a cop can do.
Right.
You know, and then,
but a lot of times, the people don't realize that, and they can quiet the situation down
Oh,
pretty
right.
easy.
Oh, yeah.
There's an authority, there's definitely an authority, and also with the other full-time officer there, they'll have not only the authority, but the power to
Yeah.
enforce.
Right.
But yeah,
But-
there's,
they? They need to be identified.
But in the case, the ones that I knew, they also were kind of like goodwill ambassadors downtown. And
absolutely.
I thought that was something we have
I really
so
miss
missed.
having a full downtown
Yeah.
staff.
So is that built into this budget here?
Yes.
Downtown?
Yeah, great. I'm all for it.
I'm not seeing anything in this budget that jumps out.
No, looks great.
Great, a lot of things went
Thank you.
down.
Yeah,
Well, Billy had to, step into the middle of this, and he's done a good job, because he's kind of rearranged a lot of what Brian had. He's really to be commended, especially with the capital. He
Okay.
did a good job of reducing and finding, I guess, finding extras.
yeah.
Being able to add to the body cam with the
Yeah.
dash cam. I'm real excited over that, so,
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Well, I think we're really lucky. Thank you.
David, you got any comments? Still there?
I'm trying to listen and focus in as well as I can. It's kind of hard to hear everybody.
I'm sorry.
Your officers don't take the cars home, do they?
Yes,
They do?
yes, right
The
now
patro-
we do.
The patrol cars?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Anyone that lives inside the county.
Inside the county.
Yeah. And, and that's, again, that's just, as you know, Steve, probably from your time, the hardest thing we have in Eureka Springs is getting and keeping employees.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the
It's a-
benefits.
It's a perk, and
And it's a,
It's a perk, but they're also, looking at it from a supervisor's point of view, there are also many times when it's nice to have guys respond and be ready to go.
yeah.
We have several guys that live close enough to the city to respond and be involved in something that needs more help.
right.
And it's really nice to be able to just call them and say, hey, can you show up? And they don't have to go to the police department, check things out, get dressed, and, they show up ready to go, because they keep their emergency things, other than obviously keeping their rifles in a safe place, not in their car. But they have everything they need to show up to a hot call
Yeah.
in their unit.
Are their weapons kept in the car, locked up, or
They
they take
keep
it?
them on their person, so if they, like, we have a couple of guys that live in town that they can't leave it in their car, obviously, in town, so they're gonna take it inside, put it in a safe,
That's what I was asking.
safe place. Same with their handgun. Basically, it's the same policy for the handgun as is the rifle. Any weapons are stored in
How many
safe
patrol
places.
cars are there?
We have 10 full-time.
10 officers and 10 patrol
Yes,
cars?
10, and we will, I kind of wanted to talk about that if we ended up talking about units, was we have one that we're hoping to age out at this point that's still in good shape, but it's a two-wheel drive, and it's an old Taurus, but if we could keep that on standby as a reserve vehicle, because he was talking about volunteers. I've recruited enough volunteers to fill our staff just in the past couple of weeks. People that I knew from before that were previously certified as police officers that miss it, want to get out and serve the community, not necessarily get paid for it. Other, barring any psych eval issues, which I don't think there'll be an issue, we'll be at full staff on our volunteer staff really soon. And these are good guys. I recommend them.
How many volunteer staff do you have?
We have 7, I believe.
Wow.
We have one that's been here for a long time. He actually retired, well, he's resigned from law enforcement. He still has another job. He still comes back and helps us. We have 3 in the school. 2 of them are principals. They come out and work. And one is a mechanic at the school. He comes out and works. And then I guess we add 3 more, that would be math. What's that, 7 or 8?
Are they reserve officers then, or is that
sorry?
what, are they called reserve officers?
Reserve officers, auxiliary officers,
Auxiliary.
yes. The 3 former law enforcement, they've been out long enough that they'll have to take the auxiliary class again, but that's all they'll need as far as being certified to be. And obviously, we'll acclimate them to the city. They'll do some orientation. They'll ride with another officer for quite a while. It typically takes a long time for us to just let a reserve go take a vehicle and go make traffic stops, but they kind of have to prove themselves. I don't have any reservations about these full-time officers being able to make traffic stops, but kind of need to let them know it's a different environment, in Eureka Springs than it is anywhere else.
Are they given patrol cars or equipment
They
to
will
take
not
home?
be taking anything home. They'll be taking their issued handgun. They can take it home.
That's
And all
police
the
property?
equipment as far as,
Is that department property?
yes. Some of the guys have their own duty belts. As long as they match our duty belts, they'll be able to use those on duty. But anything as far as their uniform, their boots, their badge, their PD issued gun, they'll be able to take that home. There's no units for them.
How many officers do you have living outside the county? I mean, the city?
One detective and
Or
one
is it
chief.
county or city?
Outside the county.
County,
Yeah. One detective and one chief of police live outside the county.
okay.
When I was talking to Brian once before, we were kind of talking about the officers taking the weapons in their house. Are they in a locked?
Per our
Can you
policy.
explain what that is?
So it needs to
everybody
be, it needs to be just like any responsible gun owner would have their firearm in their house, away from children in a locked, secured location. It's in our policy that it has to be a locked. If they don't have a locked, it has to be completely disabled. In other words, with a locking mechanism through the barrel, through the chamber, where it can't be used in any way, shape, or form. I actually rewrote that policy when I came back as a patrol supervisor.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, you were talking about keeping cars. If we decide to keep a car, that's not a big deal because there's really no value in those cars when we sell them. We don't get hardly anything out of them because they've been
Lots
driven
of
hard, and they've
miles.
got holes
Yeah.
in them from where the radios went, and holes in the roofs where the lights went, and all that kind of stuff. So there's not a huge value in them. So if there's a car you want to keep or whatever, there's really no problem.
Well,
with
I've
keeping
also
it.
looked into some fleet rotation where some less fortunate departments can afford to buy used. In times past, we've had to go to Missouri State Police and get used ones. If it's a crunch, you can do that, but it's been my experience that some of those, there's a reason why they got rid of them. That's one of the ones. The other one that I want to replace this year has been nothing but trouble. I won't go into the details on it, but I was thinking that maybe we could get into something like that, where if we had updated vehicles that once they reach a certain mileage, that we could get a substantial amount out of them by selling them to another department that couldn't afford their vehicles. That might offset some of the maintenance costs that we're having to put into some of the used ones we're buying. But I haven't really got any details on that. That's just something I'm looking into. But yeah, as far as our mode of operation over the past several years has been drive it until it's not any good, try to sell it for what you can get out of it. The two that we got on auction right now aren't, of course, they were already supposed to be on auction, and they got creamed by a garbage truck sitting in the parking lot.
Well, we know being a police officer is a stressful job. And you can deal with some very stressful things.
Yes, sir.
So is there something in your budget to deal with officers' wellness? A
We
large
have-
incident, if an officer deals with a death or a shooting or a child death? I wish I'd asked the other chief that as well.
Well, we have a deal with Ozark Guidance
Okay.
to be able to get counseling from them. I believe it's 3 free sessions before the insurance takes over. And so they could have counseling sessions with them. The counselor could recommend them, and then that's when their insurance would take over.
Didn't a new law just go into place for EMTs for the counseling sessions, and Municipal League is doing a program for that? I don't know if we're large enough for it. Okay.
We are thinking about increasing the number of days or number of times that an officer is going to be able to go to, whether it's fire or police, for mental health counseling and stuff. So I think it's going to be pretty significant, I think.
On that same sort of note, we're really upping our behavioral health training and what we can do with the community. We have a class that has taken some effort, not just my effort, but some effort for several individuals that are interested in not only putting it on, but attending it. We're having a CIT, Crisis Intervention Team class in the old Echo Clinic, which is now Boston Mountain. They're going to host it for us locally. We're going to invite all the surrounding departments to it. And we have guest instructors coming over from Fayetteville and Springdale to put that on for us. And initially, when I started that, I didn't think it would be that big of a problem. But apparently it takes quite a bit to do these classes. They're full-on 40-hour classes. There is a lot of information there. And it takes advantage of a lot of resources. And it took some doing from the director of Boston Mountain to put that together for us. I greatly appreciate that. And also the instructors to come over and do it from Fayetteville. That being said, when you have officers that train in that type of thing, I think that also benefits them mentally. I think knowing what normal is helps an officer, but I'm always on the lookout for more of that type of, because you're right, it is something that we've all had to deal with. You've been in it for very long. You start learning what PTSD is, and if you're not prepared for it, it can affect you.
As a profession, police officers have a higher rate of suicide, divorce,
Yes.
substance abuse, gambling, all that stuff. Anything,
And if
any
those officers
profession
take-
with that kind of stress is going
Yes,
to
sir.
respond.
If those officers are taking the type of training to help other people, maybe they'll learn more about what their resources are.
Or make it more normal.
And you know what, the chief and I talked about that, and when he was, about behavioral health, is a lot of our citizens too, and being able to have our officers understand that situation. So if they come up, they know how to respond to it instead of just treating them like they're drunk or they're screwed up on drugs or something, because it just may be a PTSD or it's lack of drugs. They haven't taken their meds.
It's true.
If they don't take their meds, they can get awfully crazy.
Had a pretty good meeting with the director, Dr. Pauls, too, to just kind of touch base with her to see how we could help. And that was one of the questions I asked her. I said, do you have any behavioral health issues with people who have been self-medicating for a number of years, and then they get off that self-medication, and that's who they are, with behavioral health issues or mental health issues? And she said, absolutely. And so I'm hoping to network with her with some
That
outside
happens
behavioral
periodically.
health as
People think they're doing so well.
well.
I'm going to stop medication, so I'm doing so well. And then they go back to being delusional.
And then they don't have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the medication on the other side has side effects. So
Yeah.
people are dealing with those side effects. It's not pleasant sometimes.
All right, any other questions for the chief while he's here?
No, that's great.
Looks good.
David, do you have any questions for the chief while he's here?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief, for coming down and going over this. All right, our next budget meeting, I don't remember the date.
It's before the next council meeting at
Oh, that's right,
5.
Yeah.
that's right, it's
Yeah.
right before the council meeting.
Yeah, it's 5 instead of 5:15.
And we're going to have Public Works.
We have Public Works coming to talk about water and streets, and were there any other department heads that y'all wanted to have here? Smitty's budget is pretty straightforward because so much of his is reimbursed by the state. And
In
then,
fact, we don't contribute anything to the transit.
Oh, really?
so then that just kind of leaves like some of the smaller departments like building, planning,
Finance.
finance, the mayor.
Yeah,
Mayor.
only want you here. Yeah, well, we're
I'll
gonna
be
have you
here.
here.
All right, well, thank you all for
We're
showing.
gonna rake you over the coals.
We appreciate it. Thank you,
Yeah.
David.
Bye,
Thanks.
David.
Thanks, Chief Billy.
Bye, David.
Thank you.